Hey guys,
Hello.
welcome back to Spooky Sleuths. Today we are going to talk about another cult.
Yeah, this cult, I don't think anybody's going to know about.
No, it's pretty close to us though.
Yeah, it's a religion-based cult called Xenos.
I'm Sammy.
And I'm Nicole,
And we are Spooky Sleuths.
It is based out of Columbus, Ohio. So about 3 hours from us. So let's jump on in. Xenos Christian Fellowship began in 1970 in Columbus, Ohio. It was founded by Dennis McCollum and Gary DeLashmutt. They were students at Ohio University together.
Like OU or OSU?
Sorry, Ohio State University. There is a difference.
Yes.
Dennis, along with other students at the university, began an underground newspaper called The Fish. Early Christians used the word fish, or the symbol of a fish, which is still used today, as an acronym for Jesus Christ, God's Son, the Savior. Their rooming house that they lived in as students became known as the Fish House, since that's where they printed the paper from.
Okay.
The paper contained all kinds of news about current events, music, and philosophical issues. The students began hosting weekly Bible study and offered free dinner to those that attended.
Oh, this doesn't sound like a bad thing.
Not yet. The Bible studies were called Fish House Fellowship. For 12 years, these Fish House Fellowship meetings were held, even after the original students had graduated and moved home. As the group grew, they had houses all around the OSU campus and in the northern part of the city. The groups grew and saw people dedicating themselves to the religion. The leaders of the group would give advice and use personal influence rather than spend time and money on administrative offices. They focused on several theological emphases that they learned through religious authors. Some of these include the importance of reaching out to non-Christians, the importance of learning Christian truth, and duplication or multiplication of groups. So They wanted many groups, many small groups, rather than one big group. Gary and Dennis, through their time at OSU and in the Fish House Fellowship groups, decided that church tradition had no value for direction for God's people and reevaluated the current state of things.
Okay. That seems like we're away from the patriarchy.
Yeah, we're descending into cultism.
Yeah.
They decided to be an every member ministry, accepting anyone who wanted to join their church, and all their members were ministers, quote unquote. They did not like people who didn't use their spiritual gifts though, and they didn't want to become a formal group at first. Their main focus remained on students at OSU. Even though both men, the two founders,
Had long since graduated, hadn't they?
yeah, they even moved to California for graduate studies. But they returned to Columbus
For this group.
for the group. But when they returned, they decided they wanted to have a formal church now. Probably for the tax write-offs.
Probably.
The pair elected a board of elders to start new home Bible studies called small groups. Their membership changed from anyone is welcome to by invitation only. They still believed in small groups to be able to share their teachings and connect better with members. And they do these small groups today, but they're called CTs.
All I could think of is computed topography.
They also had large groups called bush groups. These groups went into neighborhoods and conducted outreach. I think of the Jehovah's Witness when I hear this.
Okay.
They're not the same. They're not even close.
No.
But how they
But
go
they're
and
going out.
knock on doors and outreach that way. They called them bush groups because it's a reference to going to the African bush, away from established groups. Not that bush, you silly Willy!
I wasn't talking that. I just felt very racist. I wasn't making it weird.
That look you were giving me was weird.
Oh, this is bad.
They do conduct these groups still, but they usually don't last very long. By 1980, just 10 years after beginning, the group grew to 500 members. They finally decided it was time to get an official building for their church. The building was 9,000 square feet in the basement of a large building. So they went from printing their papers in their house basement
To now
to
worshiping in the basement.
Yes. In 1981, they had 800 members. So in that 1 year, they grew 300 members. And this is just local. It's not like people from all over the world.
It's Columbus.
So they decided to start paying their staff when they got this big. They had members trained to become part of the ministry. Even today, they still do that. It was around this time they became a legal church and changed their name to Xenos after a magazine they had been publishing. By 1984, they had an average of 2,050 members attending the small group meetings.
That's not a small group.
Per meeting, over 2,000 people.
Yeah, that's not a small group.
They continued to operate the way they always had, and they continued to grow.
When I think small groups, I think like 10 people.
Max.
Even that's too many.
I don't want to be in a group with 10 people.
No.
As the church grew, they continued to focus on recruiting young members, typically from OSU. They had to change their name in 2019 to Dwell, partly because of the rumors of the institution being a cult. The church claims this name change was because Xenos was hard to pronounce, and it was meant to describe a place to be with the Lord and in the same community as other Christians. So why do we give them the cult title, you ask?
Yes, tell me.
Well, I mentioned that the church focuses their recruitment on young college kids, but they also target teenagers. This group of people are particularly susceptible to manipulation techniques.
Yes.
Their favorite manipulation technique was love bombing their recruits and including them in fun activities within the groups. Once they have a hold of the person, they have them move into a ministry house. These houses are overcrowded, to put it lightly. They would have at least 12 people in a small 4-bedroom house.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's at least 3 people to a room.
And that's living there, not just like coming for a meeting. That's
right.
Living there all the time.
Once they lived in the house, they must attend several small group meetings a week. It is non-negotiable. Otherwise, you get belittled by the leaders. After members are fully immersed into the church, they take leadership classes and give a portion of their income to the church every month.
Of course they do.
Slowly, other members isolate the new members from their friends and family outside of the church. Red flag number 87. Essentially, the church takes away the person's individuality and threatens them with what is described as intense stigma if they leave. So you have these already vulnerable people. You're pulling them in, love bombing them, making them feel like they're a part of something, and then threatening them with stigma that they're probably were already facing before they joined your group. There are a couple of websites dedicated to exposing the church for their practices. They have testimonials from former members who share their experiences. One member stated that the missionaries were to focus on 3 targeted groups: those who are socially isolated, those who are sailing through the waters, and those who the missionary has a past relationship with. So typically they recruit people who are struggling mentally.
That's sad.
Yeah. When the missionaries recruit, they start by befriending them and the love bombing and everything. Then they invite them to a meeting, and then the real love bombing starts, making you feel like you're actually part of something. The missionaries are incredibly persuasive and relentless when recruiting new members. They will hound the person until they agree to become a member. Another former member states that they use passive aggression to keep their members in line. Okay, queen. They'll say mean things and put their...
What the hell?
You're telling me you're aggressive? You are passive aggressive.
I am aggressive, girl.
I think your nose just grew 2 inches.
It did.
Pinocchio. Anyway, members would say mean things and put other members down. It is a very mind control oriented atmosphere. One member stated that they spoke out against the culture in the church and coincidentally had symptoms of anxiety, like stomach pain and intestinal issues, likely from stress. But the church told them that they were having a satanic attack. What? Because they spoke out, but because they had all these symptoms, they said they were under satanic attack.
Okay.
Not because of the stress of being involved in a cult.
And the majority of them are college kids.
Right.
So not only do you have all these cult expectations, you're trying to get a degree.
Yeah. Group members often turned to drug use because of the stress they were under while involved.
I'm sure stimulants were up there.
Not like hardcore drugs, like not even weed, but mostly alcohol, excessive use of cigarettes, vaping, and hookah. So not really drugs, but drugs.
Not even the stimulants I was thinking of.
No. But they use these in excessive quantities.
The legal drugs.
Yes. They would spend what little money they get to keep from the church on these items. So it keeps them broke and dependent on the church. In addition, they supply underage members with alcohol and cigarettes, starting that addiction process. But I also think it's part of like, hey, aren't we cool? Don't you want to hang out with us? We'll let you drink.
Yeah. Especially the demographic that they're targeting.
Right. One of the websites I used for research, there's a section called Unalive Yourself Ethics. Dennis, one of the founders, wrote this letter and emailed it to the college group at the time after 2 members of Xenos unalived themselves. One passage of the letter reads, "Committing unaliving is a serious sin, according to biblical teaching," while another reads, "Committing unaliving is following the call of Satan." The letter talks a lot about unaliving being murder and a sin, rather than addressing why these young people are taking their own lives. He said, "We want all of our students to know that if they move toward unaliving in their thinking, they are contemplating not an easy escape from life's problems, but a desperately evil act in defiance of God's will."
That would not convince me to not do that.
No, we don't want to address all of the issues that we have going on to help with the mental health crisis that clearly our members are having. They're dependent on drugs and alcohol, not really drugs, but alcohol, cigarettes. They're dependent on those for stress relievers. When you take all their money so they can't even get out, no wonder they are experiencing depression. And you're threatening them so they can't leave. They feel like they can't leave.
Right, and you've cut them off from everyone that they know and cared about them. It's a cult. It's a cult. Well, the website xenosisaCult.com, they have resources for those looking to leave the group, and I encourage anyone involved refer to that website. We'll put that in the show notes too. So this is a small little cult. Really has only been featured on maybe one other podcast that I've seen and in the news in Columbus. That's all I've heard about it. So I think it's pretty interesting that something like this is happening right now. Right now. This isn't in the 70s. No, this is right now. And nobody's talking about it.
No. It's crazy. But tell us what you think about Xenos.
Have you ever been affiliated with Xenos? Do you know anybody that has?
If you do, please refer them to this website. Help get them out.
We will put the link in our description box on YouTube and our show notes on the podcast platforms, all of that. But yeah, if you made it this far to the end of the video, leave us a praying hands emoji.
Make sure you check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Spooky Sleuths Pod if you're not already watching us on YouTube. We put out new episodes every week on our YouTube channel, and hopefully here soon we'll have some additional videos.
Working on it.
But make sure you subscribe, comment, smash that like button.
And
was weak.
It was.
Smash that like button.
Oh my gosh, you didn't have to redo it.
I did.
And on that note,
stay spooky, friends.